Have you ever stopped to think that the most important encounter of your life might happen at the very moment you believe you are only watching from a distance? The encounter between Jesus and Zacchaeus does not begin with a sermon or a demand, but with a gaze that cuts through the crowd and reaches a hidden heart. A rejected, curious man trying not to be seen discovers that even up in a tree, he was never beyond Jesus' reach. And this story carries deep truths that are still being repeated in the lives of many people today. Maybe you are living that way too, present, yet distant, curious, yet cautious, wanting to see Jesus, but unsure if you want to be seen by him. Throughout this message, you will realize that this encounter was not only about Zacchaeus. It was about how Jesus sees, calls, draws near, transforms, and completely redefines a life. Stay until the end, because one of these lessons may speak directly to your heart. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here you will continue learning truths that have the power to change your story. Jesus walks through the crowd while everyone competes for attention, space, and recognition. In the middle of the noise, Zacchaeus chooses the silence of a tree, believing that watching from a distance is safer. He does not want to be noticed, but he wants to see. That detail reveals a lot about the human soul, the desire for closeness mixed with the fear of exposure. Even hidden, Zacchaeus is not beyond the reach of Jesus' gaze. Before a single word is spoken, the encounter has already begun. The first lesson we learn from the encounter between Jesus and Zacchaeus is that even when someone feels invisible, Jesus sees exactly where that person is. Zacchaeus climbs the tree believing he will go unnoticed. Yet Jesus' gaze does not work like ordinary human sight, distracted and selective. He sees beyond escape attempts, beyond appearances and emotional defenses. Being hidden does not mean being forgotten. Simply being seen already begins to transform the way a person sees themselves. Many people today live in different kinds of trees. Some hide in excessive work, others behind constant irony, others in spiritual indifference. Some conceal themselves behind busy routines or prolonged silence. What this scene teaches is that none of these strategies prevents an encounter. Trying to observe from a distance does not cancel the possibility of being reached. Jesus does not react with surprise when he finds Zacchaeus in that position. There is no shock, no reproach, no embarrassment. There is awareness. This reveals that nothing in that moment was unknown to him. The story shows that heaven is not startled by human weakness. The encounter happens not because Zacchaeus did something right, but because Jesus chose to look. This first movement teaches something profound. No one needs to come down from the tree to be seen. Recognition comes before change. Transformation does not begin when someone exposes themselves, but when they realize they have already been reached. This understanding dismantles the logic of earning acceptance and prepares the heart for something greater that is still to come. Jesus' gaze does not carry accusation, it carries intention. While the crowd saw only a label, he saw an entire story. It was not about ignoring mistakes, but about refusing to reduce a life to them. This kind of gaze produces safety, not fear, and safety is the soil where true change begins to grow. The second lesson we learn from the encounter between Jesus and Zacchaeus is that the gaze of Jesus does not condemn, it restores. Zacchaeus was used to looks filled with contempt. Still, the gaze that reaches him is different. There is no public exposure and no corrective speech. There is dignity. When someone is seen without being judged, defenses naturally fall. Restoration begins within, long before any outward action. At this point in the story, Zacchaeus has not spoken, promised anything, or changed anything, yet something is already happening inside him. This shows that transformation does not begin with words, but with perception. Being truly seen changes the way someone responds to life itself. This encounter challenges a common idea, that one must change first in order to be accepted. Here, the order is reversed. Acceptance comes before change. When the weight of judgment is removed, the heart becomes free to respond. And when that response comes, it is far deeper and more lasting. But the story does not stop with this silent gaze. What happens next completely changes the direction of the encounter. After seeing and restoring from within, Jesus does something even more personal. He calls Zacchaeus by name. And when that happens, staying hidden no longer makes sense. After seeing Zacchaeus where no one else did, Jesus takes an even bolder step. He does not only look, he speaks. In the middle of the noisy crowd, one voice stands out with clarity and authority. It is not generic. It is not collective. It is direct. Zacchaeus' name echoes through the air, breaking the anonymity he tried to create. That call turns a hidden observer into an active participant in the story. The third lesson we learn from the encounter between Jesus and Zacchaeus is that a relationship with Jesus is personal and individual. Jesus does not call Zacchaeus by a label, nor does he define him by his mistakes or position. He calls him by name. This reveals that, to Jesus, people are not numbers or stereotypes. Every story matters. Every life has unique value. A personal call communicates belonging before any demand. Being called by name dismantles internal defenses. Zacchaeus already knew he was seen, but now he understands he is known. It is no longer about being noticed from a distance, but about being recognized in depth. This kind of calling creates responsibility, but it also creates security. When someone realizes they are not just another face in the crowd, their response begins to change. Many try to relate to God in a generic way, keeping everything in the plural. People, others, maybe someday. Being called by name breaks that pattern. It removes the person from the crowd and places them face to face with truth. Faith stops being a concept and becomes a relationship. This call also reveals something subtle. Jesus does not ask for permission to get close. He takes the initiative. This shows that the invitation is not born from human effort, but from divine decision. Being called by name is a reminder that no one is forgotten, even when they try to hide within the crowd. The silence that follows the call is filled with expectation. Zacchaeus is still in the tree, but now he can no longer pretend he is just watching. The call demands a response. And every true response begins internally before it becomes visible externally. The fourth lesson we learn from the encounter between Jesus and Zacchaeus is that the call of Jesus invites us to come down from the trees that keep us distant from real life. Zacchaeus' tree was a place of protection and control. From there, he could see without being seen, participate without commitment. It invites descent, real encounter, direct contact. Coming down from the tree means abandoning comfort zones that prevent growth. Fear, guilt, pride, and self-protection function as hiding places disguised as caution. Jesus' invitation is not to humiliate, but to free. Staying above means remaining isolated. Coming down opens space for transformation. This descent is not only physical, it is symbolic. It represents letting go of control and allowing something new to happen. While someone remains distant, nothing truly changes. The descent marks the beginning of a concrete experience, where faith stops being observation and becomes lived reality. This invitation also reveals urgency. Jesus does not say, "when you are ready." He calls for now. Transformation does not happen in an ideal future, but in the real present. The call does not wait for everything to be resolved. It happens precisely because it is not. And when Zacchaeus begins to come down, the story changes its rhythm. The observer becomes the protagonist. The hidden becomes accessible. But something even more intense lies ahead, because Jesus does not only call Zacchaeus out of the tree, he decides to go to his house. And at that moment, love crosses even greater boundaries. When you imagine Jesus calling Zacchaeus down from the tree, you might think the encounter ends there, but it doesn't. What happens next goes even deeper. Jesus doesn't stay on the surface of the conversation. He chooses to go further. He decides to enter the house. And that changes everything, because a home is a place of intimacy, truth, and things no one sees from the outside. The fifth lesson we learn from the encounter between Jesus and Zacchaeus is that the love of Jesus reaches even the places you consider unworthy. Zacchaeus' house represented wrong decisions, unresolved stories, and choices he would rather forget. Still, that is exactly where Jesus chooses to enter. This speaks directly to you. There is no area of your life that is too broken for this encounter. Love does not wait for you to fix everything before drawing near. When Jesus enters the house, he enters what is real. He steps into daily routines, repeated thoughts, and habits formed over time. This shows that transformation does not begin with outward appearance, but in the place where you truly live. What you try to hide is often exactly where love wants to touch. You may believe certain areas of your life need to remain closed. Fears, guilt, past mistakes, or repeated patterns make you think it's safer to keep the door shut. But Jesus' choice reveals a different logic. He does not enter to accuse, he enters to restore. His presence does not expose to destroy, it reveals in order to heal. This movement also shows that love is not guided by other people's approval. While many murmur and judge, Jesus draws near. That teaches you that you don't need the crowd's validation to experience real transformation. What happens inside the house matters far more than what is said outside. When you allow that access, something begins to change within you, even before any visible action takes place. Presence brings inner confrontation, but it also brings safety. And that combination prepares your heart to respond differently. The sixth lesson we learn from the encounter between Jesus and Zacchaeus is that no matter where you are today, Jesus chooses to come and meet you. Zacchaeus did not need to prove anything first. He made no promises and offered no explanations. The initiative came entirely from Jesus. That means the encounter does not depend on your performance, but on his willingness to draw near. You may be in a confusing, exhausting, or distant emotional place right now. Even so, that does not stop the movement of the encounter. Jesus crosses barriers you created yourself. He is not intimidated by your reality, nor surprised by your story. He moves directly toward what needs to be transformed. Coming to meet you means stepping into difficult inner conversations, old wounds, and conflicts you avoid facing. But this approach does not increase the weight, it lifts it. His presence brings clarity, and clarity opens space for change. When Jesus enters the house, the atmosphere shifts. Your heart begins to respond. Even without long speeches, something is rearranged within you. Love works quietly, but deeply. And when it finds room, the result is unavoidable. Because once someone is reached this way, remaining the same becomes impossible. Presence demands a response, and what happens next reveals that a true encounter always produces visible transformation. It is at this point that the story moves towards something even more powerful. After Jesus enters the house, something begins to happen within you. It is not external noise, but inner movement. The encounter stops being just a visit and becomes a silent confrontation. When his presence is established, it reveals, realigns, and repositions. Transformation is not forced. It is born from the inside out. The seventh lesson we learn from the encounter between Jesus and Zacchaeus is that a true encounter always produces inner transformation. When Jesus takes space in your story, he does not ignore what needs to change, but he also does not begin by pointing out mistakes. Change arises as a response, not as an obligation. You begin to realize that staying the same no longer makes sense because something has been reordered within your heart. Inner transformation is quiet, but deep. It begins in your thoughts, moves through your intentions, and reaches your actions. Before any outward promise, something within you comes into alignment. At this point, choices start to be reconsidered, not out of fear, but out of awareness. Change stops being a burden and becomes a desire. This kind of transformation is not superficial or temporary. It is not about adjusted behavior to please others, but about realigned values to live better. When the inside changes, the outside follows naturally. The root is touched, and the fruit becomes a consequence. You begin to notice that you are no longer driven by the same motivations. What once felt normal now causes discomfort, not because someone commanded it, but because your heart now sees differently. This is a clear sign that the encounter was real and deep. The presence of Jesus does not only comfort, it lovingly confronts, and that confrontation produces growth. When you allow Him to remain, transformation stops being constant effort and becomes an ongoing process. The eighth lesson we learn from the encounter between Jesus and Zacchaeus is that salvation is available today, even for those who think they have gone too far. Zacchaeus did not need to prove he had changed in order to be reached. The encounter came before correction. This shows that salvation is not a reward for those who got it right, but an invitation for those who recognize they need to change. You may carry the feeling that your choices have taken you too far away, that repeated mistakes or past decisions have created a distance impossible to cross. But the encounter with Zacchaeus reveals the opposite. Salvation reaches where no one else believes there is a way back. This access does not depend on perfection. It depends on openness. It is not about earning, but about responding. When you acknowledge the need, the path is already being prepared. Salvation does not erase your story, but it redefines your future. Most powerful of all is that this offer does not belong only to the past. It remains available today, right now, in the moment you are reading this. No matter where you are on the journey, there is always space for a new beginning. Transformation starts when you allow this encounter to take real effect. But the story does not end here. After inner transformation, something must become visible. What happens inside begins to reflect outward. And that is exactly what the next chapter reveals. When the encounter is real, change overflows into practical life. After everything that happens in the house, the story reaches its clearest point. Jesus declares the meaning behind all that was lived. This is not only about Zacchaeus, nor only about that day. What was revealed there crosses time and reaches you now. The mission was not left in the past. It remains in motion. The ninth lesson we learn from the encounter between Jesus and Zacchaeus is that Jesus continues to seek and reach those who are lost. Zacchaeus was not an isolated case. He was a portrait of people who drifted away, hid themselves, or felt excluded. When Jesus states that He came to seek what was lost, He expands the scope of the story. That includes you, regardless of the path you have walked to get here. Being lost does not only mean making wrong choices. Sometimes it means becoming disconnected from who you truly are, living on autopilot, or carrying an emptiness that is hard to explain. Jesus' search reaches these silent places. He does not wait for you to find your way back alone. He comes to where you are. This search is not invasive. It is intentional. Jesus does not force doors, but He remains present. He calls, He waits, and He respects timing, but He never gives up. Knowing that you are being sought changes how you see your own life. Your value is not in how far you wandered, but in how deeply you matter. When this truth is understood, guilt loses strength and hope gains space. You stop defining yourself by failure and begin seeing yourself through the possibility of restoration. The search reveals purpose. You are not an accident. You are the focus of a movement of love. And when someone understands they have been found, something begins to realign. Life stops being mere survival and gains direction. It is at this point that the story becomes personal and continues in the present. The 10th lesson we learn from the encounter between Jesus and Zacchaeus is that when Jesus enters your story, nothing remains the same. Jesus does not enter to make small adjustments. He enters to transform the meaning of the journey. He accepts you as you are, but He does not leave you as you are. This combination of acceptance and transformation is what makes the encounter so powerful. You begin to realize that old patterns no longer align with your new awareness. Relationships, decisions, and priorities are reevaluated through different criteria, not because of external pressure, but because of internal alignment. Change stops being effort and becomes a consequence. When Jesus enters your story, you begin to live for something greater than yourself. Life gains purpose, direction, and meaning. What once felt confusing begins to take shape. What once felt empty begins to be filled with significance. This encounter also reshapes the way you see others. Those who have been reached begin to look at people with more compassion and less judgment. Personal transformation becomes a quiet invitation for others to experience the same path. The story of Zacchaeus ends, but yours continues. The same call, the same search, and the same possibility remain active today. This encounter was not only about one man in the past, but about what can happen when you allow this story to become yours as well. Maybe, as you listen to the story of Zacchaeus, something stirred inside you that was not by chance. Jesus is still passing through the road of your life, just as he did that day. He is still looking up, still calling, still waiting. And today, more than ever, he looks at you with the same love. A love that does not grow tired, does not accuse, and never gives up. A love that knows every detail of your story and still chooses to stay. Perhaps your heart has drifted away over time. Maybe pain, mistakes, disappointments, or exhaustion created distance. But hear this carefully. Jesus loves you deeply. Not for what you do, not for what you promise, but for who you are. Just like Zacchaeus, you do not need to hide, explain yourself, or fix everything first. He wants to enter exactly where you are right now. Turning your heart back to Jesus is coming home. It is recognizing that you need him, that life becomes too heavy, too empty, too confusing on your own. Accepting Jesus as the Savior of your life is allowing him to forgive, heal, restore, and guide your steps. It is choosing a life of communion with God, where you no longer walk alone, where there is direction, purpose, and peace, even in the middle of struggles. If you feel this call right now, do not harden your heart. Speak to Jesus right where you are, in your own words, simply and honestly. Tell him you need him. Tell him you want to begin again. He is listening. He always has been. And when you open your heart, he enters not to judge you, but to transform you with love. Now I want to ask you sincerely, which lesson from this story touched your heart the most? Which moment made you stop and reflect? Write it in the comments. Your answer may be exactly what someone else needs to read today. And if this message spoke to you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, you will continue learning, growing, and walking closer to Jesus. He loves you. And this story does not end here. It is only beginning in your life.